Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. Of course, that's why you're here. When I was rummaging through my old stuff, I found this, which is actually not some random no-brand toy car, but it turns out a 1/43 scale Bburago Ferrari 512 BB. And the old memories associated with it hit me like a truck, because this was that red car I used to play with as a kid. You see, I was one of those kids who didn't have the privilege of growing up with 1/18 scale models. I just grew up with 1/64 scale Hot Wheels, Majorettes, and Matchbox cars, and of course a few bigger trucks and stuff like that. But in terms of recognizable supercars with better detailing, this and the 1/24 scale Ferrari 355 Spider that I've previously reviewed on my channel were pretty much the only bigger cars I had. Today, of course, I collect several big scales, the tiniest of which is 1/43. At the same time, I don't collect Buragos in 1/43 because I feel in this scale their detail level takes a sharp plunge downward, especially because of the toyish wheels. And so when I saw this car, I initially wanted to review it all by itself, just for nostalgic reasons, nevertheless. But then I decided to buy a more detailed equivalent in 1/43 scale, which I managed to find for €10 on CK Model Cars, which is this one. So instead of making two separate videos, one for last week and one now, I decided to do a double review instead. So I want to begin with the less detailed Burago version, which however is still worth keeping due to its nice race livery. Officially, Burago calls this car the Ferrari 512 BB Daytona number 66, although I don't think this particular livery existed in real life. There was a 512 LM, which however had a different body frame than these road-legal versions. So the car that you're looking at here is a Ferrari 512 BB. This was built in the decade before the Ferrari Testarossa, which began production in 1984. This one, however, began production in 1976 and went all the way up to 1984. So here, looking at the front of the car, you can see that it has two pairs of pop-up headlamps, one of them being the actual headlamps, and I believe the others being the fog lamps. But looking at the Burago, I just want to go through the livery real quick. You can see that it has the Ferrari branding right up here at the front. And the entire livery is actually a sticker that has been draped over the model car. And this model is like 25, 30 years old. And the sticker is still not entirely peeling off. So even though I played with it a lot as a kid, which you can see right here, evidence of because there's like a scratch on the windshield right there. The actual car is still in good condition, and that says a lot about the quality of, or maybe not the quality, but like the robustness of 1/43 scale Burago cars. Now regarding the grille at the front, if you take a look at this picture, you will see that the actual like stock 1/43 scale Burago comes with a red plastic grille at the front, which contrasts the black pretty well, but it is not realistic because this is not how it looks like on the real 512 BB. So what I did was I blacked out the entire red part, and then I tried to paint a grille pattern on the raised plastic slats, which are there, but they were just not painted. And of course in 1/43 scale it's really hard to do because these cars are actually quite small in your hand. But this is actually a more realistic look of the real 512 BB compared to the general look of the front of the 512 BB on the 143 scale Burago. So I think it looks a little bit more realistic now. You can see a lot of registered companies as part of this livery. I mean, you can see the petroleum company Agip right there. Bilstein, shock absorbers, Denim, Corello. So this is definitely licensed, but I don't think that this particular livery existed back in the day, as in number 66. Which also brings us to the side of this diecast car, and this is like the main reason why I don't collect 143 scale Buragos, because if you look at the wheels, they're just like, they don't resemble the actual wheels of the 512. It's just a very crude approximation. And this is a tradition that Bburago continues to this day in their 143 scale model lineup. So if they improved in this aspect, I think that otherwise these models would definitely be collectible. But until they do that, they will most likely just be appealing to the 164 scale Hot Wheels and Matchbox crowd, who also don't give huge levels of importance to the rims. But otherwise, I mean, you can see that this Burago, for example, has raised windows, right? That's always a good sign. And even though this is a 143 scale car, we have that. And of course, we have the number 66 logo. We got the Prancing Horse fender badge right there on the left. A few other companies, including Pirelli and Ferrari. And while I was cleaning this car, I made a few modifications as well to make it look more realistic and like the real Ferrari 512. The most important of which is, if you look at the spoiler up here, this used to be red on the Burago, but on the real car, this is black, so I decided to just paint it in black. And as we move on to the back of the car, you will notice the biggest difference in terms of improvements that I've done on this car, which is that I not only painted the tail pipes in silver, but I also painted the tail lights. Because this entire section here was completely black on the Burago. But obviously the real car has tail lights, which have this particular color pattern, which is over here at the exterior we have this orange light with a silver bit in the middle. We got the red light with sometimes slightly brighter red center parts, and the same applies here. And Burago had already modeled these on the model, so why not just paint them? Just finish the job, right? And I think it looks a lot better now. As we move on further up, you'll notice the typical hood vents of the 1980s Ferraris. So this is something that began as early as the 512 BB and then continued on to the Testarossa and then the 348 and the 355. You also notice these two parts here in black plastic. I'm not exactly sure what they're supposed to represent. But yeah. And then we have a little window back here through which we could look into the interior. The interior of the 143 scale Bburago Ferrari 512 BB is arguably the worst part about this diecast model because there's literally nothing in there. I mean, if you look closely, you will see that this car is missing the entire dashboard. And that's not because I played around with it and got rid of it or something, but the official car, the model, does not come with this at all. There's just like the front stops right there, and then we have like just bare metal. There is not even a steering wheel here, and the only bit of detail that we get is this little center armrest here with a few buttons, I guess, and some seat detail, but that's about it. So if we move on to the driver's side, you can see that it's literally the same. I mean, there's really nothing to see here. But hey, this is a children's toy, so I just kept it for the nice livery. And that's why we'll come to the second part of the review, where we'll take a look at a more detailed model in the same 143 scale. Now, the Burago retails for just a handful of euros. I mean, it's really an old model that's actually no longer produced. but I've seen prices go all the way up to like €5. And this particular model, on the other hand, costs 10, which is actually a reduced price because I think it used to cost a little bit more. But €10 is a really good price for a 143 scale model with a higher level of detail and with a display box, because this model comes with its own hard plastic display box. And as you can see, I have not yet opened this model. I have not yet unboxed it. It still comes in this clamshell. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unbox it for you. And this 143 scale Ferrari 512 BB is actually part of a larger 143 scale Ferrari collection that is not just available on CK Model Cars, but also on Modelissimo, Model Car World, and a couple of other websites. Because in the past, I believe there was like a huge Ferrari collection in 143 that was launched. And they used to probably come with their own magazines, just like the Mercedes-Benz 143 scale collection that I have reviewed in the past. And these days, they're being sold for anywhere between €5 and €10. So even if you're not interested in the Ferraris, the fact that you get the hard plastic collector's display, that alone is almost worth the money. So in either way, I mean, it's always worth collecting these things, because if you consider companies like Spark, Top Marks, and Looksmart, they offer 143 scale cars for anywhere between 80 and €120. So compared to that, here you're really getting a lot for your money. So the name 512 refers to the car's 5-liter 12-cylinder engine, 512, and BB stands for Berlinetta Boxer. Berlinetta because it's a two-door car, and Boxer because the engine of this car is a flat 12. Replacing the front-engined Daytona, this was not just the first 12-cylinder Ferrari road car, but also the first mid-engined Ferrari road car, considering the Dino wasn't officially branded as a Ferrari. Production of the 512 BB ran from 1976 to 1984, and from 1984 onward, as you know, it was replaced by its much more famous mid-engine successor, the Testarossa, which also used a flat 12 layout. So looking at the front of the 512 BB by Altaya, you can see that they also have a Ferrari logo right here in the middle. And this is also the only thing that I don't like about this model, which is that the fog lamps have these pegs. But apart from that, we do get a silver grille here, which is realistic. It looks a bit weird, but that's just the real car as well. I mean, the 512 BB also had this sort of grille in the middle. And if we look at the front grille here, we can actually see that it has a Ferrari logo in the middle, or at least what's supposed to look like one, and the individual slats are in chrome. So this is already done for you, whereas on the Burago, you actually have to do this yourself. Another difference you can see is this sun stripe, which is missing on the 143 scale Burago. And we also have a nicely detailed windshield wiper. As we move on to the side profile of the 512 BB, you'll notice that Ixo Altaya's version is just a lot more detailed than the 143 scale Burago version. Especially regarding the rims, you can see that it actually looks like the real car's rims. I mean, it has the 5-spoke pattern, and then you also have these center lock wheels, which you'll have to twist to be able to remove the wheel from the car. And the model rolls pretty well, despite its small size, so that's also good. Here at the front, we even have a slightly raised indicator. We have painted door locks, and down here we probably have the Pininfarina branding, as well as a visible NACA duct here at the side. You'll also notice that the A-pillar and the B-pillar is painted in black, like on the real car. But on the Burago, it was the same color as the rest of the red diecast car body. Without the livery, you can see the two-tone of the Ferrari 512 BB, and that's actually what the car is most famous for. So I just love the side profile of this car. The spoiler here is correctly colored in black, so there's no need for me to do that. And back here, we also have a Ferrari branding, which was also missing on the Burago. Moving on to the back of the Ferrari 512BB by Ixo Altaya, you can see that there's not a whole lot of coloring to do. I mean, what I could do is I could paint the interior of these exhaust tips in black, and I could add the second coloration on the center of the taillights. But otherwise, right out of the box, you have more details here than on the Burago, including BB512, which is written here. The taillights themselves are also separate pieces and look a lot better. One thing the 143 scale Ferrari 512BB by Ixo Altaya seems to suffer from, however, is that the paint is applied in a too thick amount. And this is mostly noticeable here at the back of the car because these individual louvers, for example, are not that pronounced compared to the Buragos, where the paint being thinner allows for a much sharper contour. But while we're here, another extra bit of detail that you will notice is that the 143 scale Ixo Altaya comes with mirrors, which are missing on the Burago. And that's a malpractice that Burago continued well into their 118 scale Testarossa, as you've seen in my previous review. However, the Burago has raised windows, while the Ixo Altaya only has vent glass. However, where the Ixo really shines is the interior. And before we take a look at that, let's look at the dashboard right here. And you can see that it begins with these three air vents and extra detailing like that. And now as we move on to the interior of the Ferrari 512BB, you can see that there's a lot more detail here on the 143 scale Ixo Altaya than there is on the 143 scale Burago, including a steering wheel to begin with. But then behind the steering wheel, you'll also see that we have an instrument panel with speedometer, rev meter, fuel gauge, and all those nice things. And then in the center here, we have two more gauges. And we have a radio, and below it we have two more air vents. Now, of course, these are stickers. They're not separate gauges or anything. But remember, you're looking at a 143 scale model. So it's still very good for this price. But it gets even better if we look here at the center armrest, where you can see that we have a stick shift painted, or the knob is painted a little bit in white. And these things here, I don't know exactly what they are, but I think they're like chrome trim, are all painted in silver. And the seats themselves also have a more realistic texture, which reminds me of that of the 1980s Ferraris. As you can see right there. I have seen versions of this 143 scale Ixo Altaya 512BB where the seats are painted in red, as you can see in this picture, whereas on this model they are not for some reason. But the screenshots on the CK Model Cars website also showed black seats, so it's not like I'm missing out on anything. Maybe there were like 2 batches of these produced. So let's check out the driver's side of the Ferrari 512BB. And you can see that we have a handbrake here as well. So this is the kind of detail that I like and expect in my 143 scale models. You can even see the Ferrari prancing horse and the bolts around it in the center part of the steering wheel. We even have the stalks right there. So yeah, this is why I bought the 512BB once again, and I don't regret my purchase. But if you want to be serious about collecting a really good looking 118 scale version of the Ferrari 512BB, there's actually a company I can recommend, and that company is called Chrono. They're really hard to find for a decent price on eBay because the prices are like skyrocketing. But if you're lucky, you should still be able to pick one up for around $50. And Chrono makes the 512BB in 2 colors, in red, which is pretty rare to find, and in a slightly more common yellow. Now, I didn't buy that one because the yellow one did not look good at all for me. I like the red one, but I couldn't find one for a decent price, so that's the reason why I bought it in 143 scale instead of 118 scale. But the cool thing about the Chrono 512BB is that the back opens, and so it looks really cool. The doors obviously open as well. It has a lot of detail, so you should definitely consider getting that if you're really serious about having a 512BB in your collection. So you can't really open the engine on this one, but just some stats here. The flat 12 of the 512BB had 360 horsepower with a top speed of 288 kilometers per hour and capable of accelerating from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.4 seconds. This was pretty good for the mid-70s to mid-80s. So here's a look at the car's bottom. You can see that it says 143 made in China Ferrari 512BB. Doesn't say the company, but this is Ixo Altaya. Sometimes advertised as Ixo, sometimes as Altaya. You can see the riveting here. The tires also have a little bit of a texture. And there's not a whole lot of detail, but back here you can see the engine detail, which theoretically you could paint in silver to make it look a lot better. But yeah, it's definitely more detailed than the Bburago's bottom. You can see it says made in Italy, Scala 143, and I painted the fuel tank and the exhaust system. Otherwise, this would have also been completely in black, and now it looks a bit better, as you can see. So I hope you guys enjoyed these Ferrari 512BBs just as much as I did reviewing them for you. And before I go, I want to give a special shout out to my pal, Florida Car Buff. This guy's got the most stylish diecast channel on YouTube, bar none. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of high-profile ones out there that make entertaining reviews, but in terms of lighting, location, the overall uniqueness and cool factor, there is nobody like Florida Car Buff. Because when you watch his videos, you feel like you're watching a late-night street racing tuner meetup. I mean, he's got a fully decked out, custom-built, neon-lit, multi-storied car park full of stacked tires, diorama crew, markings on the concrete pillars, manufacturer emblems adorning the walls, ventilation ducts in the ceiling, the whole 9 yards. But that's just the filming location. If you're tired of my 118, 124, 143 format and can't wait to see some really expensive stuff, watch Florida Car Buff. This guy's not just into land yachts like I am, showing you 118 scale BOS resin pieces, but he's got some of the rarest, most expensive, and most exclusive diecasts out there. Rolls-Royce, check. Auto Art Mercedes 600 Pullman, check. Super Elite Ferraris, check. BBR Ferraris, check. Stretch limos? SUVs? You betcha. So guys, please go to his channel and smash that subscribe button because he deserves so much more. In the meantime, I'll be bringing you more videos soon, so stay tuned and have a wonderful day. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out.